A vigil tonight in Gainesville was held in memory of gun violence victims, including Ajike Owens.
TV 20's Emma DeLama tells us why citizens say 2 months after the shooting, they're hoping lawmakers will seek justice for AJ.
Although Ajike Owens was killed in Ocala, activists here in Gainesville are honoring the mother of 4 exactly 2 months after her death. Songs, poetry, and prayers. A group of people gathered at the GNV Bridge to honor Ajike Owens and other gun violence victims. People shared their grief through art and dance. Others shared poems or gave empowering speeches, including Representative Yvonne Hayes Hinson.
The fight for justice and the right to live in a safe community free from more senseless gun violence will live on. The life of AJ has inspired a movement that will not be silenced.
The vigil comes months after Owens was killed by her neighbor, Susan Lorincz, on June 2nd. Investigators say the two were arguing over Owens' kids when Lorincz shot her through the front door.
I feel like it's a problem that's unsolved.
Those who knew AJ's family continue to show their support, still hoping the charges are upgraded in the case, even though prosecutors are trying Lorincz for manslaughter.
It's definitely a tragedy, and it needs to be done. It needs to be answered and resolved the proper way, not the way it is being handled.
State Attorney Bill Gladson formally charged Lorincz with manslaughter back in June. Some were outraged by this decision, believing she should have faced murder charges instead. Her next court appearance is expected to be on November 1st, but until then, those across the state continue to fight, demanding justice for AJ. Reporting in Gainesville, Emma DeLama, TV 20 News.